good afternoon, good evening, depending which part of the world you're watching us from and which part of the day you're watching us. And you are most welcome once again to yet another episode of our beloved program, Academic Personalities Series. Today, we have a name that is well known in the academia in the country, and the person is not other than Professor Yakubu Boyi, former DVC admin of Nasarawa State University. You're welcome to our program, sir.
Thank you. It's my pleasure being with you this morning.
Before we move into the program, I would like to seek your indulgence, our viewers, to please press the button of like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Now, I'll hand you over to Professor Ngwe to first of all introduce himself.
Yeah, thank you very much, my friend, my brother. Just as you heard, those are my three names, Yakubu, Boyi, and I'm a professor of pharmaceutical microbiology at the Nasarawa State University, Kefi. And I've been working there for some years now, and I grew up through the ranks, and I had other previous positions I've held up to the last one being the Deputy Vice Chancellor, administration of the university. I think it's okay for now.
Yeah, thank you for that wonderful introduction. By now, as the program progresses, you will get to hear some more about the positions that Professor Ngwe hold in his career. He was, like he mentioned, the DVC, former DVC of Nasarawa State University, former Dean of the Faculty of Natural and Applied Sciences, and he was head of department several times. And I know he would explain to us how that happened. But before then, Prof, would you like to speak to us about your academic, educational background before academic background? How your studies started, primary, secondary, to the ranks of degrees and all that?
Yeah, I had the privilege of starting school at 6. Those days you can't start earlier than 6. We went to the primary school, and essentially I went to a public primary school then. And like I always tell people, if you start small, you can be big tomorrow. And it's not how you start, really, it's your determination. So I went to a public primary school, and then after 5 years, I didn't do the 6th year in the primary school. I went to secondary school, where I spent 5 years, and I finished. And I went to the university to study pharmacy. My first degree is in pharmacy. And after that, I went to start a job as a researcher. Mm-hmm. And then one of the only research institute, the National Institute for Pharmaceutical Research at Idu, here in Abuja. Mm. And that's where I started my career, academic career as a researcher. And I had the privilege of going to do a master's at IBU, Ahmadu Bello University area, where I had my first degree. Mm-hmm. And then later on went to do a PhD at the Tokyo University of Technology in Japan. Mm-hmm. And I returned to the country after the PhD immediately.
Prof, talk to me about Tokyo. You had a PhD in Tokyo. Does that mean that you speak Japanese?
Yeah, I speak a little.
Wow.
The PhD was in English, but I had to learn Japanese, to interact with the community. Mm-hmm. So it was purely for purpose of interaction. I speak a little.
Wow, wonderful. So before going to Japan, you already made up your mind that you're going to be an academic, or is it as a result of the experience in the PhD that made you decide that you should be an academic?
This is very interesting. I've always shared this with people where I have opportunity. I've a long time decided to be a teacher. And when I was in secondary school, government had these scholarships, and we're being told, I were encouraged that if you do well in the sciences, you have a foreign scholarship to go overseas. Those are some of the things that motivated me right from that level, that I was going to be a scientist. And it was in the 80s when this issue of HIV came up. And I became interested, and I said, so this drug, this particular disease, I will be the one who will discover it.
Wow.
So that made me, become very motivated. And, that's why I went to read pharmacy. Pharmacy has to do with drugs. And I thought I would be involved. And I also went in to do microbiology, just preparing me for that future. So I've long actually decided I was going to be a teacher. So when I even told my dad was a teacher, and he didn't like it, because for him, why will you be a teacher? Because when they look at how teachers have been treated in the country, nobody respects them and all that. It was like, did you decide to be a poor man? That was just their own idea about teachers. And because I read pharmacy, and everybody thinks that if you read pharmacy, you can be a very rich man because you sell drugs and all that, and you make money. I've never thought of working one day outside the university or an academic career. So I have long decided.
So it is safe now to say that yes, Professor Ngoy decided to be a poor man.
Well, poverty, it's not poverty or the mental poverty though. I'm rich, I believe, mentally.
So okay, having decided to go this way, even though that is not the wish of your dad and that is not the wish of the community, you've studied pharmacy. How fulfilled do you now are you having gone this far in the academia?
Sincerely, if you say I'm fulfilled, I'm fulfilled. I enjoy the job. There's no money much, but I enjoy it. At least we went into it when there was nothing. Because when I finished and started as a graduate assistant, I was, how much were we earning? 1,500.
That was when?
Yes, that was the salary.
No, but that was when. Let's put this in the context.
This I'm telling you is in the 90s. Professors were earning about 6,000 naira. 6,000 naira.
Wow.
In the 90s. It was not until this man, I think this person that started the revolution in the salary was Abdul When Abacha died, Abdul took over. The salaries
I think the proposal was taken to Abacha, and then Abdul
Salam now worked on it then.
I remember that.
The salary of professor now moved from around 6,000 to around 40,000. Just within that short period. Professors became happier. So started going to buy cars.
I think at that time 6,000 was like $50 at that time, because the dollar at that time was around 120 thereabout.
No, it was less than that.
About 80 naira.
Yes. It was even out to. It's about 20 naira. Abacha died, dollar was about 20 naira to $1. I mean, 20 naira to $1 when Abacha died. So you see, a lot of things have happened to our naira since Abacha died. So the economy was not really that bad. But 6,000 was still very difficult for somebody to earn, to maintain the family. It was not funny. But I think they started having a lease of life after the death of Abacha. Obasanjo came, raised it, and Obasanjo now made it better. By the time Obasanjo left, professors were earning 300,000 naira. So you can see within that short period, we moved. So, but it's not about money. If your money wouldn't have been there. I keep telling people it's a choice because of the interest we want to have.
Prof, it seems to me like most part of your career you've been in Nigeria, in the academia in Nigeria. And there are some peculiarities about the academic profession in Nigeria. The mighty also is there, and the politics of promotion is there. Would you like to speak to us about some of these politics in the university, where you started, your promotions, how they come, and the ASU, the strike, and all that dynamic?
Here, I had the privilege. I haven't studied outside. I saw how their promotions have been done, and the department where I went to, where they had 2 professors there. That's all. In the whole place, they didn't even have a technologist.
Wow!
But they had laboratories. Everything was being run the laboratory. The professor and his students around the lab.
Wow!
And you see your professor, just like any other person. There's no
big deal
about it. Your professor will come. There are scheduled times when you come to clean up the place and all about. Every Monday we used to clean up the lab. Everybody will come, roll up his sleeves, and they enter the lab and clean up. You wash your things yourself. Your glasswares, your experiments, everything you did. We didn't have anything called technologies in that system. Maybe some other system, maybe other countries they have, but that's where I went to. The students and the professor, and they had 2, 1 professor, 1 associate professor. So They have a very lean system in terms of number of staff, and they appoint you when, they find you appointable. Once they find you appointable, Here we have a lot of issues, like you said. The politics is there, no doubt, but we still find some people still get into positions on merit, but we still have all these issues. In our own system, when people like you, especially the politics is even worse when you want to be an associate professor or you want to be a professor, because a lot of things depends on the vice chancellor. He decides where he sends your papers, he decides who assesses you. So if he doesn't like your face, he collects your papers and just keeps them in your drawer. And you can be there for years.
Wow.
And the professor will don't do anything. And then for some people, within weeks. We know people who were appointed professors within just 1 month of assuming of taking responsibility in the university. 1 month. They went to assess them. And we've also heard of in other universities where the VC will even invite the assessor as a visitor of the vice chancellor, keeps him in the guest house, does the assessment, and leaves it and goes. The next moment they announce it. So the politics are there, So, but I believe that while you work, you make sure you work very hard and be qualified. You understand? But it's always still the politics will always be there.
So now, Prof, how would you say that these politics are affecting the quality of the product, starting from the undergraduate students to postgraduate students, and then the professors themselves?
Sincerely, politics is not healthy as it's been played here in this country. It's not healthy, because it compromises quality. Certainly, it compromises quality. Because in the course of doing this, you will find people who are not even qualified, that are being appointed to positions, and you know that it's what you cannot, you can't give what you don't have. That's the reality of life. So if you're not good enough, you cannot give anything to anybody, and so you end up turning mediocres in the system. So it definitely destroys quality. And such people, unfortunately, they are better off at politics. They will end up being in one position or the other in the university,
and they will affect the policy making
and deciding the policy in the system. And that's even making the issue worse, because these ones will compromise the policies because they know they themselves too they have been compromised, so that at least they came in as a product of compromise. So it's difficult for such people to want to do things, to encourage merit in the system.
So, Prof, now I would like you to speak to me about your research. And after speaking to me about your research, we'll move into talking about funding and all that. But first of all, what's your research interest?
All right. My research interest has been in the area of antimicrobial agents, research, antimicrobial action and resistance. Basically, it's on how antibiotics are used, and the sourcing of compounds or chemicals that have capacity or ability to inhibit the growth or to kill microorganisms. That's antimicrobial action. And also in the area of resistance, microorganisms, because they are living and they have to survive, and because of the law of the fitness, every living thing wants to survive against all odds. So if it encounters a hostile environment, which of course the antibiotics represent, when you take antibiotics to treat against a microorganism,
they fight back?
Yes, they fight back. It's a hostile environment, so they try to create, develop mechanisms, to withstand, to overcome it. And that's what we call resistance. And when they do that, it means that these drugs no longer will work. And that's another area of my research. Okay, and I've also done, and I'm still doing work trying to identify certain compounds in microorganisms that we can use as markers to design diagnostics, for diagnosis, or for purpose of vaccine. You know that the best way to control any disease is by prevention. And that's the emphasis even by the World Health Organization. Preventive medicine is the best. So, and vaccines represents one of the major products that we use in preventive, treatment or control of management of diseases. So, if we're able to identify targets on the organism, like the body system, the human body system, will produce antibodies against. Then we can produce them in animals, and then or now in this modern world now of genetic engineering, where we use recombinant DNA technology, we produce them in a recombinant as what we call transgenic fermentation system. We can produce and reproduce more of those vaccine candidates. And for diagnostics, if you're able to identify that this is what is causing the disease, then you're already halfway into solving the problem. So diagnosis is also very important. That's why we can also find markers in microorganisms that we use as a basis of identifying that this organism is present in this disease or it is not there. And it's a very useful tool, because if you get that and you're able to identify the microorganism causing disease, then you are halfway solved the problem. But if you are not able to identify the organism, then you will just be doing a blind job, and you may not be able to get at what you want. So that's the kind of things I do.
Wonderful. A lot of science. I'm lost. Speaking about research, definitely all research needs funding, most especially pure science and applied science, the one that you're into. And any research funding coming your way?
In this country, the challenge we've had always really, foreign grants have been very difficult, because those foreign partners or people most times would like to see what you are doing, what your government is able to do for you. Because when they want to access you, we have made efforts to apply for grants just like others, but they always are interested in what is really going on in your own system. What have you done before? By your own effort. Then they can now say, okay, let us assist you to encourage you. So we really have a challenge getting foreign grants, over the years. But the ones we have had, is this one established by TED Fund. We call it the National Research Fund. When the federal government launched that grant, it was a 3 billion naira grant during the government of the former President Goodluck, Jonathan. And that 3 billion naira was supposed to provide funding for research. And I think that's where we're accessing grant for now. A major source of grant in this country now is that. And we have been privileged to get, out of that grant. Currently, there is a work we're doing that is funded by the National Research Fund. It's about a 30 million naira grant. They don't give more than the ceiling is actually 50 million, but they didn't give anybody 50 million, so they said they can only give us about 30 million. So we're looking at the subtyping of HIV, human immunodeficiency virus. When I say HIV, I'm sure you understand, across the country, and looking at also the pattern of resistance to these drugs.
Prof, there's this
we have
issue
benefited
that
from TED-4, and TED-4 has been very good helping us in that area.
there's this issue that our viewers may want to hear your opinion about. Every time you speak to academics, especially academics here in Nigeria, they'll tell you that there's lack of funding. The government is not funding research as much as it's supposed to be doing, most especially when they compare funding facility available here and funding facility in more developed and more advanced countries. But when you speak to the people in the government, they'll tell you that no, the professors in this country are not competent to write a proposal that can fly. There's a lot of funding money that has not been accessed for a very long time. A lot of money. They'll tell you sometimes in billions, sometimes in trillions, and it's not being accessed enough by the academics, because the academics, all they know is just theory and no practical skills to write proposals. What do you think about this?
Well, it's partly true and also partly not true. While government, there are people like that, you cannot rule out that possibility. But there are also many others who are quite experienced too. And I think that, like I said, it's only TED Fund that had made an attempt in this country, providing at least funds for people to access. Otherwise, in this country, except if, of course, you go out there to look for funding from the pool, the global pool. But if it is in Nigeria as a nation.
So, Prof, about this debate between the academics and the people in the government, the academics will always say that there is not enough funding available in the country for them to access. But when you speak to the people in the government, they'll tell you no, there is funding in billions, sometimes they tell you in trillions, but the academics don't have the capacity to develop a research proposal that can fly because they don't have this capacity of they are not business minded people, and to access funding you have to be business minded person to develop a research proposal that can fly. What do you think about this?
Yes, I think government is not entirely right, because it's not entirely right. While you might have people who do not have capacity, there are quite many who do. And I'd like to say sincerely that the problem has been money. And I would like to say this because over the years, we have seen what government has done with respect to funding. Even the budget for education for this nation has been below 10% for a very long time. In fact, the worst case is what we're having now for this year is around 6.7, less than 7%. I think this is the worst we've ever had in our history as a country in terms of budget, the education budget. When the UNESCO has proposed a minimum of 26%.
26, yes, absolutely.
Minimum of 26%. So it's how can you say there's funding, enough funding? And some few years ago we're told that not that we're told in the budget, the country's budget, 2 years ago, 2 years ago I remember, the entire Ministry of Science and Technology that housed virtually almost about 90% of the research institutes in this country who actually are supposed to be involved in this research that you're talking about, especially the kind of what we call translational research that will translate ideas and whatever into useful products. Their budget was less than 2% of the national budget, and we're expecting any productive. There's no way we can get anything done under this condition. So government is not entirely true. If the funds are there, the only attempt first that they have made was that creating that national research fund that I said is a 3 billion research grant that they established. It's under the former president. But they have only advertised for those grants, to the best of my knowledge, twice or so. This one that they just gave now, they advertised in 2016 and they are just releasing the money. We are lucky to have in our own team in Kefi. We have a grant, the one I told you earlier, that we are going to be working on subtyping of HIV in the country. So you can see, since that time, they have only advertised to release grants out of that 3 billion, only twice. And a lot of people have applied. Not that people will always apply. And for them to say people don't have capacity, I don't think it is true. I don't think it is completely true. If the funds are not there, or that they themselves are not even willing to release the funds. Yes, because that's also another possibility. Because, the challenge we have here is, some of these politicians and public servants that manage the grant on behalf of government, they are only looking at the money they can make. So when they are giving you $1, they are looking at how much are you making for yourself. They are not thinking that you are going really good. They don't even believe that those proposals that you are going to spend this money because of the kind of the system that we run in this country. So it's a big challenge. I remember the first advert. I'm going to share my own personal experience. We proposed a cross-country research that will involve my own laboratory and another laboratory in the US. So it's a partnership now where we're going to do some part of the work here and the design of the vaccine, because we're supposed to develop vaccine against typhoid fever. But we're going to use strains of the bacteria that correspond to causing typhoid fever in Nigeria. We're going to use local strains to develop the vaccine.
And usually, in this kind of science, when you use strains that are peculiar to you, to develop a vaccine or a product, it's likely to be more effective, against your own problem. And we went there to defend this proposal. They said, oh, they invited us just to look at the faces of those behind the work, and that is as good as we have gotten the grant. And then later on, they refused to give us a grant. That first attempt, I'm just telling you my experience, they refused to give us. And later somebody told me who was in the panel, said, that they didn't believe that we can do the work. That was the excuse. That's why they didn't give us. And I said, but how can you say we cannot do? We came, we have defended, we have shown you. We also have experiences of what we have done before. And then this other laboratory in the US have many years of developing vaccines. So it's not a new thing, but they refuse to give us. So you see, it's not about so the willingness to give is also another thing. But we are prepared to work if they can give us money to work.
So, Prof, looking at all
because
these
government is the major financier in Nigeria. That's the truth. Government is a major financer of virtually every sector. It's a major spending.
But looking at all this experience,
The private sector is not there at all.
looking at all these experiences, sometimes you get a grant, sometimes you don't, and back and forth, and the grant is not forthcoming, and the agitation and all that. What do you think is the future of research and science-based policy making in the country?
Yes, I think what government needs to do more and more is to ensure that the private sector gets involved. Companies get involved. Encourage our companies not to be interested in bringing finished product. Raw materials that you have to use to produce whatever you want to do in this country, we can make them here. Bring out a policy that will make them to use what we call indigenous, skills and technology. Government has this policy on local content, especially in the area of engineering and all these things, where local content, a certain percentage must be local content. If they insist, they will have to do it. You cannot get permission to go and import a raw material that we can produce in Nigeria. You have to insist. That's how other countries developed. Japan closed up its borders for many years. I mean, in the 70s, the economy of Nigeria was better than that of Japan. But when they closed up their for about 10 years, they decided not to talk to anybody. After that 10 years, in the early 80s, Japan became a second the best economy in the world. Because they're ready to just do use whatever they have, all their skills there. I remember those days when I was there. The average Japanese will tell you that the made in Japan is the best. Wow. And he doesn't care what your opinion is about it. And you'll be looking at what he's offering. It doesn't look very, excellent by your own standard when you compare with the white man, the British and American. But an average Japanese believe that it's the best. Whatever you say is you're on your own. They don't care. So that's the kind of level of patriotism that the Japanese will buy made in Japan before he buys from anywhere. And the made in Japan is even more expensive than the ones that came from outside the country. But they prefer to buy. We don't have that kind of spirit here. So if government will work on also encouraging us to be Nigerians, to think Nigerian, and want to use Nigerian, anything that is made in Nigeria, you use it. You don't say you must get from there. So the raw material we use to do our production and whatever, we have capacity to produce these things. We have capacity. A lot of researches have been done, developing local raw materials, for most of the things that government we are doing here. But government don't even patronize. Funny, in government settings, people will even go and buy furniture. They will go and import furniture. This is something you can make right here. So government itself is even killing, innovations, in the country. So I think government will have to deliberately encourage patriotism. People should develop this Nigerian spirit. That we want to use our own, whether it is made in Aba, whether it is made in Zaria, or whether it's made in any part. Let us use our own. Let us show interest. No matter how it is, we will grow. Let's develop our own, standards for everything. Japanese did it. Today they are talking to the world. Everybody is listening to them.
So, Prof, let me take you through a different domain now. I'm going to ask you a question about brain drain, but a different kind of brain drain. But normally when we talk about brain drain, we are talking about our brains, minds migrating from here to a different country. But that's not what I'm asking you about. I'm asking you about brain drain from the universities to the public sector. Many professors, by the time they become professors, the next thing is looking for political appointment in the government. How do you look at that? Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? What do you think that is doing to the academia and to the country?
It's not healthy. If I say it's healthy, it's not correct. It's not. I'm not being honest about it. It's not the best. You know, we thank God that we read, and we have also, at least we have seen another world. You know, that the university, the professors stay in the university halls. You know, there is this what they call town and gown relationship going on. Policies that government use in the general society are being developed from the university setting. That's how it operates outside the country. But here, it's not so. It's not so. You understand? So government has not engaged the university sufficiently. And I'm told that if government engages the university sufficiently and try to make the professors know that they are important, even when they are still there in the university. By part of these things is also to endow research, and all that in the university. It can keep somebody to stay in there. But when he knows that his intellect, he doesn't have to be out there, driving the policy himself, but he can be in the kitchen developing policies for the country. So it's not healthy, and it's still a government responsibility, you understand, to discourage. But no, you can't stop anybody from changing his career path. That's another thing, because he will be infringing on his right of what he wants to do with his life. But if there's enough encouragement by way of grants, and then even the conditions of service, like I keep saying, also is part of it. Because if you see what a professor earns, it's one of the motivations, the things that takes people out.
I think you should open up a bit more about that. What professor earns and on the scale of things, what does that mean?
And the public sector now, the professor earns around 4.8 million in a year. Everything.
And if you divide that by 12, that'll be terrible.
Yes. That's what the professor earns in the public sector. That's what the professor earns in the public sector, 4.8 million. So it's so bad. And that's one of the motivations that is, making them to leave. Because when they see what's happening in the political, you get a political appointment, maybe as a commissioner, you hear what they collect. That's the one we know. We don't know the ones they get, under the table.
I don't know what that means.
No, politicians, it's not everything that is on the table. We all know this. So they have a lot of other privileges here and there, and then they enjoy. So I think the conditions of service largely is part of the challenge. If you also improve on the conditions of service and you make people feel, that they are important, even when they remain in the university, why not? People will stay. But as long as we continue this way we are going now, where things are not being done properly, the professors not being called. The vice chancellor earns barely 3 times what a normal professor earns. That's what they pay a vice chancellor, because it's also a political appointment, and then the conditions are not really good enough. But like I said, those who enjoy the job, who like the job, not because they are there for money, will always be there. No matter how, the condition, they will still be there, because you are fulfilled, to what you are doing. So, but if you say money is a priority, it becomes a problem.
Probably this will be the last question I will ask you. Here's the question, Prof. Now you rose in your career to the highest level, DVC in the university. The next position is political appointment, being the vice chancellor. So to be the DVC is the peak, right? So now you reach the peak, and you're now back in the class teaching like any normal professor. What is next? Are you looking for an opportunity to become the vice chancellor, or are you looking for an opportunity to be in the public sector?
Yes, I think looking ahead, I made efforts to be a vice chancellor twice,
But I've not been successful. Both this year, I've applied to 2 different institutions and I wasn't successful. So it means obviously I would like to be a vice chancellor if I have an opportunity, and I will not say no. Because my own dream of what a university should look like is beyond what I'm seeing going on now. And I work, sleep, and wake up, thinking if I don't have the capacity, the authority to get things done, I may probably not be fulfilled in that area, by the time I retire. But I have my own idea, which I think is the modern idea, the contemporary train on where university should be as problem solvers. Yes, university should we should be solving problems. Problems in society should be solved. The university should be there to solve them. But if we're not solving problems, we're not contributing to the problems individually. So personally, I'm looking forward to being a vice chancellor, and if I get that, or even elsewhere, another opportunity to be in the public sector, like you said, because the appointment, there are some other academic type-based appointments, even outside the university. Maybe being a director general of a research institute, okay, and some other appointments that requires your intellect. So those are the things, one would really want to get involved doing, and I think the experience that one has will be brought to bear to others. So we're there waiting when the time comes.
Prof, thank you for that honesty.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
It's
much.
my very big pleasure to be your guest this afternoon.
Prof,
Yes.
I learned that you have 2 different kind of backgrounds. Well, even though they are not mutually exclusive, a researcher in a research institute and academic in the university. But give our audience a little bit of a background about your research experience outside of the university.
Okay. Well, I actually started my career as a researcher immediately after my youth service. I was employed as a junior research fellow at the National Institute for Pharmaceutical Research and Development here at Abuja. And that establishment, its mandate primarily is to develop drugs. Maybe let me make it simpler. To develop drugs, and particularly exploring our natural resources. Because main thing that they do there, developing drugs from plants, from animal sources, from microorganisms in soil and all. That's why I said from natural resources. Because plants are very rich sources of drugs. Drugs that are used for treatment of all kinds of diseases. So that's how I got involved. I was employed into the Department of Microbiology and Biotechnology. So we are interested, my own interest there would be to look for drugs that have activity against microorganisms. So I spent a good part of, and from there really I went to do my master's and PhD while I was still there as a staff of that institute. And I came back from Japan and I joined the institute again, before I eventually left for another research institute, which is the biotechnology laboratory in the Shelter Science and Technology, under the Federal Ministry of Science and Technology. So basically my work has been, developing drugs at that level. When I moved to the Shelter Science and Technology, it was supposed to be involved in vaccine development, basically, because some of the skills I acquired from my PhD were some of the modern techniques of developing vaccines, what I did for my PhD. So this was why Shesco hired me. Shelter Science and Technology, so I had to leave this other place where I started to join them. So that's actually about my career. So we developed drugs. In fact, while we were there at the National Institute, it has a rich history of. There's one drug they have developed that has made it very popular, was for sickle cell. Yes, maybe you've heard of it before. In this country, this institute developed a sickle cell medicine, and what they did. Actually, it was a herbal preparation, a mixture of about 4 or 5 different plants put together, and they did the science and discovered it was active. And that's how it was even patented. It was in the market, they were selling. They sold the patent out to an Indian company, an American an Indian based in America. So I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, it's an
Well,
Indian American
Yeah,
company, whatever.
company. Yes, they bought the
I
the
see.
patent and they came here and even started producing the sickly anti-sickly drug, you know, independent of the organization. So that's a bit of
So, Prof, what is your specific contribution while you are in those research institutes? What's your specific contribution in the research that you are carrying out at that time?
You know, in developing drugs, you know, drug development is a multidisciplinary. Not one person can say he has done it all.
Yeah.
You have your own aspect work you contribute. You know, as a microbiologist, my contribution in this area is maintaining quality,
I see.
ensuring that the microbiological quality
Mm.
of the drugs that they are developing is sustained, and of course ensuring that, you know, for every drug that you see in the market, that's one of the things that things that you have to do to assure quality of microbiology, because microorganisms can destroy this drug if they contaminate them. So we have to ensure that the drugs are produced in the most effective way and using the standard operating procedures, or what we call the good manufacturing practices, so that we can have these drugs less contaminated. You know, that's an aspect because of the mandate of this organization. That's what we do. So we screen the unknown compounds for antimicrobial activity that have ability. We're looking for whether they can inhibit or kill microorganisms. Those are the kind of things I must come my contribution to. So any drug that comes or that is being developed in that's the kind of what we do. Okay, we screen for antimicrobial activity. We also try to ensure that the microbiological quality is maintained as microbiologists.
I'm assuming that the research you have been doing there, the
Mm.
contributions you've been doing there, are some of the experiences that form your research ideas when you move to the university, right? Am I right to assume that? And if I'm right, then to give me a little background of how that influenced your research in the university.
Yes, the aspect that looks similar to that's what I was doing is the aspect of antimicrobial. You know, earlier I told you that my research is antimicrobial action and resistance. So that action, microbial action, is, you know, that's the area where we're screening, looking for not only plants, like I said, natural resources. There are drugs in different sources apart from plants. You know, even microorganisms from soil. You know, in fact, it's interesting to know that most of the antibiotics you see now, their sources is microorganisms. They are from soil. Yes, a good number of most of the antibiotics have their origin from the soil, from microorganisms that you get from the soil. So there are microorganisms that produce these things. So we'll screen for these organisms, you know, identify them, and then we can take them to the laboratory or to the industry, depending on you know, we want to do other ways in which you can produce this antibiotic in the industry using what we call fermentation. As a process we call fermentation in science.
Yeah.
We can produce them. So we'll grow the organisms, you know, like that, and then harvest the drug at the end, okay, of the growth. We'll extract the drug from the growth medium. So those are kind of things we're doing.
Would I be right to say that having experienced the public sector before coming to the university was instrumental in your success in the university system?
Yeah, you know, the university both teaching, research and community service. These are three things that a conventional university still in Nigeria does. Even though in the contemporary time there's supposed to be an entrepreneurship company, which is in the modern university, but we have not reached that stage yet in this country. So we still do research, we teach, we do research, and we do community service. So, but you know, in the other world, it was exclusively research, you know, activity. That's what you spend 2/4/7 doing. Even though we also have interaction with students that come from the university, under sideways, students, industrial, whatever they call it, work experience scheme.
we keep them for 6 months to train them on skills, and all that in the laboratory. But research is also another thing we do in the university. So whatever experience I had in the course of those years, definitely it has impacted on what I do in the university. Of course, you cannot say it wasn't a waste of time I spent out there, because it has helped to also, give me direction. What kind of work I do with my own students, even the postgraduate students that I have now in the university.
I see. So that means, if looking at it from your own perspective, an academic that started his career from the public sector is a better academic than an academic that has always been in the university.
Very well. I believe so. Because you have, like I said, research is very key. Innovations and all that, it's a product of research. So it's a more balanced experience.
I see.
It's a more balanced experience.
I see. Would you subscribe to the idea that academics who are in the university all the time are out of touch with real life, which can affect their research negatively, so to speak?
Yeah. We always tell people not to be completely useless. Don't say you're an academic and you're not. That's why the community service is there. Because as an academic, you're supposed to be engaging the public. You're supposed to be engaging by way of our community service. So if you're not doing that, it's not good, maybe, because it's required even for your promotion. So I don't really know how such people will even get promoted anyway. But it's expected that any academic should engage his community, because you are supposed to translate what you're doing in the university, into useful policy, for those in humanities or whatever, or those who are in the sciences who are doing researches that can bring product. We talk of product, to where the society can benefit from. So it's not correct that an academic is not involved with community. It's not right. It's not right. But of course, you still find people who are just there locked up, and they don't really engage their community that much. And so I don't think that they are going to be that effective.
Which one would you assume is easier? Being in the research institute under the federal government and getting research funding in form of budgetary allocation from the government, or being in the university and independent and then competing with other academics to apply for research grants?
Honestly, I think the university, for now, the opportunities for grants are more for the university. Because even the TED fund that government established, the TED fund grant is exclusive. They don't give it to research institutes. That's the sad thing. So you're in the research institute, you can't access. Oh, okay. Sorry, you can't access. TED fund grant. So that's where I see the university now having an edge. Because in the university you can access a national research fund, which the research institute cannot access. Unfortunately, the private sector in Nigeria is comatose. It's not so keen about research. They prefer to buy finished products. And they tell you it's cheaper for them than sponsoring or giving money to anybody to do research. That's the challenge we have. Our private sector is just not there. It's not there. And I wish that one day government will establish a fund that, just as we have the TED fund now, which is a tax that is supposed to fund education. Now one day government will also establish a fund, that will get funds to sponsor research.
Wonderful.
I hope it will happen someday. And until we do that, really, it's a bit difficult.
But before that happens, how do you think the relationship between, if there's any, universities, a research institute will contribute to national development?
We expect them to do, because when a research institute ideally is established with a mandate. And so if you are fulfilling the mandate, then you should be making positive contribution. But whether they are doing it is another matter. But like I told you, even the government is not funding them well. So it's a very sad situation. Sorry, I have to say it. I'm being frank about what I know. because I have been in that sector and I've seen what's going on. Government is not funding the research institute. They're not.
So actually, it's not just academics. The academics are crying,
Yes.
and the people in the
Yes.
research institutes are also
They are
crying.
crying.
Okay, give us the way forward.
Mm.
You are the academic, you're the professor. So give us, and you've been in the two worlds.
Yes.
Give us the way forward. What do
It's
you
a
think
change.
is the way
It's a
forward?
change of heart. Government must change the way it does things. You know, in the next level now that we in our country now, because that's the current situation, we call it next level. I want to see a government that is focused and is ready to change the way things are done. The president the other day was complaining that after so many years of establishing universities, there's very little to show in terms of innovation and products, you know, things that comes out of our innovations. And I was like, how do you expect them to create things when they hardly even have anything to buy reagents in the laboratory? So it's a sad situation. So government must change its ways. And I'm saying government because government has the largest responsibility in this country for now. Until the private sector is in place, you cannot be calling any private sector. We don't even have a private sector that is really robust. Other in Japan, I remember those days, there were grants. In fact, their grants are being coordinated, you know, even the private sector. The government coordinates it, but the funds come from the private sector. They have a fund, a pool, where these funds are donated into. And then that government agency now manages the funds. But those funds are not primarily government funds, just the way TED fund has been established. They have that similar kind of thing in Japan for research. And that's how they hire researchers across from different parts of the world and pay them. But when I was there in Japan those days, Japan usually pays the best for postdoctoral fellows across the world. So people will even go to other countries, do postdoc there, and they tell you they are coming to Japan because they will earn more.
To do another postdoc.
To do another postdoc, yes. I've interacted with many of them there when I was a student. They will do another postdoc again because they earn better and of course, okay, they will give their best to it, you know, because it was quite a good experience. Sincerely, each time I think about what that system, you know, it's always good memories. I wish we can do a similar thing. Funding and funding. There's not two ways about it. Government must be ready to spend money. We're here to spend money for things that don't really matter. You and I know in this country, many things you hear every day. You hear the news. This money is lost or is stolen. This one is stolen. They have that kind of money, and yet it's just somebody who just take it. The universities are crying. You cannot even buy reagents in the laboratory, you know, to do. No, it's not good enough. Government must sit up. That's just it. And government must encourage the private sector. That's why everything is in government, because policies are what determine, you know, how the private sector responds. They didn't like the TED fund initially. Yes, they didn't like it because when ASU was forcing the academic staff, you know, universities, you know, took their time. They went on strike for many months because of this issue. Government didn't even understand. They didn't understand what they were doing that time, why they were doing what they were doing. Until one day, I think that somebody took the time to explain to the then that this is what these people are asking for. Create a fund where they will donate money that will help to train. And today, government is happy that they have created that fund. The private sector didn't like it because the money was like a tax. It's an extra, you know, taxation on the private sector. But government has to insist.
Oh yes.
And that's the kind of thing we're looking forward to have for the research fund. I thought when government launched that National Research Fund, they would have now asked them compulsorily, you know, to also contribute to that fund. But not at all. There was no condoning. It was just purely a TED fund matter. They took out of the money for TED fund and said, this one we will use it for research. But they can also get independent money for research if they want, by tasking these companies again for that. Even if it's 1% of their profit that we know is exclusive, it will be meant for research, and the kind of research that we do must be translational research. Research that will bring products, research that will, that's not the kind of research that leads to development, not theory. You know, you can't do the theory more than a white man would. You know, we don't even have the capacity to do, but we can develop products, even with our local technology ideas, you know, with our own local resources, you know, within us, natural resources. So many things we can really do. So it's government policy. So we're looking forward to seeing a president that will wake up tomorrow and say, see, we must have another fund for research, and it has to be for research just the way we have TED fund, we have another fund for research. Then the research institutes, in fact, we can now assess it. Unfortunately, the act that sets up TED fund now do not allow what do you call it, the research institute to assess the fund. That's the sad thing, and I didn't know why. Why? Because if you want to do research, then the research institute should also access it. It's all public, but the act excludes the research institute.
Prof, thank you very much for being with us. And our viewers, this is the end of this very important discussion with Professor Ngoy. Until we meet you in yet another episode. Thank you very much.
I'm grateful. Thank you for the privilege.
Yeah.
I'm honored to be with you.
Thank you.